Alright, in this video I am going to create this beautiful motion graphic effect using the Blender geometry nodes and shader node to animate and add color to these patterns. So how we can create this, and if you want this type of procedural motion graphic effects, then you can visit my Patreon where you find a lot of procedural stuff. So how we can create this? Now let's jump into the video. Alright, we are here in Blender and here we do some modeling to create a color strips which we can use later in geometry node. So for that, here I select this and press SZ. You can scale this along the Z axis, very narrow strips, something like that. And you can also scale this along X axis to make it a strip, something like that. And Control A to apply the scale and enter into the edit mode. And now here I select all these 4 edges and Control B to bevel this. Now here you can see our bevel is overlapping. Here I press C to clamp this bevel and scroll this mouse something like that, and also clean this mesh. And I also select this upper edge and also this lower edge and Control B to bevel this single segment bevel, which is called chamfer, something like that. And I also select this upper edge again, and here I am using the hard ops, press Q, the hard ops key, and curve extract to make this loop to some pipe like structure, something like that. And I select here, you can see in the outliner, this is the curve object. We cannot shade auto smooth directly. So here I select this and convert this to the mesh, and now shade auto smooth. Also select this main strip and shade auto smooth. Now we have this strip. Nice. And we move this along, select all of these 2 objects and move this along y-axis, something like that. And here I search for the plane, which I use only a reference object in the geometry node. So I enter into the geometry node workspace and hit the new button to create a new node tree. And here I select this group input and delete this. Here I search for the grid node, which is similar to the plane in geometry node workspace, which is more flexible. We can change their size and vertices. So I connect this grid with the group output. Now we have back to this plane, and this is more customizable. And here I search for node, which is the instance on point, and connect it here. And here in the outliner, I drag this main strip, and here I connect this geometry with the instance. Now we have this. Now I make some changes in the grid and the instance on point, the scale value to fully fit these strips. So for that, here I increase the size of this strip up to the 10 meter, and here I change the vertices X, here I put 11, and the vertices Y, here I put 6. So here you can see over these strips are fully aligned along the y-axis and the x-axis. These numbers are depends on the size of your mesh in the 3D viewport. You can change slightly to find the best value for your strips. And here I also do some changes in the scale of the instance on point. So here I put the value. First I here search for the combine X, Y, Z node, so we can get the individual axes, so we can later use in our animation. So put this into the scale and also put here 1 because our structure is gone due to the 0, 0, 0 value in x, y, z. Now we have that. Now here I change the value. I want to increase the scale along the x-axis. Here I find some suitable value according to our structure 2.20, and here also decrease the size along the y-axis. So here I put 0.990. Now we have a very little space along the y-axis in these strips. Now we have that. Now I want each line of strips having another line of a strip to fill these gaps. So we can use these strips with the different colors. So for that, here I select these nodes, these three nodes, object info, instance on point, and combine XYZ value. Select these and shift D to duplicate and place it something like here. And here I also search for the join geometry node. So we can join these two different geometries with each other and connect these instance on point with the join geometry, and also this grid with the point to the instance on point. And here you can see there is no changes because both of these two sets have a same value. So we can displace these along the x-axis to fill the gaps. So here I search for the another node, which is the set position node, and place it here. And by changing this x-axis offset value, we can change our second structure along the x-axis. So here I put 0, and here I search again, combine x, y, z. So we can use later to change these offsets. So in combine x, y, z, here in x direction, I put 0.5. So they can fully fill the gaps. And I also move these second layer of strips along the y-axis to cover the half of the other. So here I put 1 to displace these along the y-axis in middle of the other strips. Now we have that. Now I want to place these curves, some tube-like structure on these edges of these strips. So for that, I move the join geometry and the group output node here, and now fully duplicate this structure. Select all these nodes and shift D to duplicate and place it something like here. Now here in the object info, I choose my this mesh, which is cube curve, and also from this I select this. And the output of these instances connect with the geometry nodes, join geometry nodes here. And also the input from the grid connect with the points of the instance on point. And also connect these instance of point node with the set position node. This. Now we have this kind of structure, and our tube have with the tube-like structure on each instance due to the same value. Now we have that. Now I want to add material for this both structures, strips, and pipes. For that, here in the material, I create a 3 different type of material. One for these tube-like structures, and other 2 for these layers of strips. Here I hit the new button to create a material, and I rename these materials. This is line for these tube-like structures, so we can grab them easily in the geometry node workspace. Create another material which I called color, and also create another material which I called glass material. So these 3 material we can use in the geometry nodes, and then in the shader node for the animation and coloring these instances. So for that, here I search for the set material node, and these two instance on points are these tube-like structures. So here I pick the lines material and shift D to duplicate and put it here. Nice. I also clean these wires so we can read these wire or these node graph easily. For that, here by pressing shift and right click to drag, add a reroute and move it here, and also drag it here and move it here. I also drag this to add a reroute and place it here, and from here move this as something like here. Now this wire is also mixing over geometry node tree, and also put it here, and here you can see these graph lines clearly. Also move this something like that, and also here to separate these wire graph. Now we have this, and here we add these two lines material to these cube-like structures, and the other layers of the scripts we have these outputs. So for here I add the material to this wire. This is for one layer of strips, and this for the another layer of strips. So here I search for the another set material node and place it here, and here I choose the color material for the color strips, and for this strips here I another set material node, and this is for the glass material. Now I assign these material to these structures, and I also randomize these materials and animate these materials using the shader editor. So for randomization here I use another node, which is the stored name attribute, which we call in shader editor to randomize the color as we want. So for that, here I search for the stored name attribute node and connect with this, and these are the instances. Strips and pipe-like structure are instances. So I change this store name attribute to the instance, and here I put any letter which we can use in shader node to call this store name attribute. Here I put T, and I also here use random value because I want to distribute some different types of a color on each of these instances. So for that, here I search for the random value node and connect with the value of the store name attribute. Now this node can change the color from 0 to 1 and randomly distribute this color on these instances. Now I select this node and shift D to duplicate for the other lines, and same for these color and these glass material. Shift D to again duplicate and place it here, and connect this with the store name geometry and this with the set material output. And for the glass, I also duplicate these and place it here and connect in this same way. Now our geometry node graph is ready to add the material and the patterns in the shader nodes. Now I enter into the material workspace to add color to these patterns. So here I enter into the material view so we can see the changings. And first I select the color slot to add some color patterns to these strips. Here is a by default principal PSDF. Here I select this and delete this because I want to add emission material, and connect with the surface of the material output. And here I also search another node, which is the color ramp. So this node we can use add the layers of the colors to these patterns. And for the animation here, I search for the wave texture and connect with the vector of the color ramp. And now we have these wave textures. And I want to rotate this wave texture along the x-axis instead of this wave texture along y-axis. So for that, by selecting this wave texture, press Ctrl T. This is due to the node regular add-on enabled in your Blender. And here I choose this object coordinate, and here in Z rotation I put the value 90. Now our wave texture rotate along y-axis. By using this offset value, we can animate the wave textures. So I move this node here and also decrease this detail to the 0, and the scale of these wave textures something like 0.220. Now here you can see, and here in the color ramp I add the color to this wave texture. So for that, here I choose some this type of color and select this pointer, and here I choose some this type of color and hit the plus button to add a new pointer, and here I make some this type of color and move this pointer something like here. Now here I use the store name attribute, which we used in geometry node workspace to randomize these colors. So for that, here I search for the attribute, and this is the instance, and here I put the same letter which we use in geometry node workspace to connect between the geometry node and shader editor. And here I do some math, search for the math node, and shift G to duplicate this, convert this to the multiply, and this with the offset, and connect this with the add. And here in the attribute I use this vector value to connect with the multiply. Now we have this. To randomize these color, to animate we use this value. Here you can see our color is moving along the y-axis, and I also want to disalign these colors. So for that, here I choose this value to disalign these layers of strips, something like that. Now we have this value to animate this color, which we can use later. Now this material is for these color strips. Now I go to the gloss material, and here I add some glass material to the other layer of strips. So for that, I delete this and search for the glass BSDF, and shift D to duplicate this. To mix these shaders, here I search for the mix shader node, connect this with the surface, and also this glass and this glass to the shader of the mix shader node. Now we have glass type material. Now here I change the color of this glass, select this first glass, and here I choose some this type of color. You can choose any color you want, but I want to match the color for these strips. And here I choose some this types of color and make it some dark. You cannot see these color on these glass because we use again the attribute node to randomize these color. So here I again search for the attribute, and this is for the instancer, and put the same letter, and here move this node here because I use this vector value to randomize this color. Here I search for the color ramp and put it here, connect with the vector, and also this color with the vector of the mix color node. And here you can see some changings to change this color ramp to linear, and move this pointer to add some color randomness to these two different gloss shader. I think now this is looking nice. Now I want to add a color to these lines or a tube-like structure. For that, I choose the slot lines, and here I use this principal BSDF, and here I search for the node, which is the color ramp, and place it here, connect with the principal BSDF, and here I search again wave texture and place it here and connect with the color ramp, and by selecting this, press Ctrl T to add the mapping and texture coordinate, and here I use the object coordinate, and here you can see our wave texture is applied. Now here I change this color ramp and this wave texture to get the pattern as I want, and change this to the constant, and here move this pointer something like here, and I use this phase offset value to animate this, and here you can see these animations is along the x-axis due to this. So for that, here I change this axis in the mapping to change the rotation something like that, and here I decrease the detail to the 0, and also the scale of the noise texture something like to get the desired pattern. Now we have this, and by using this offset value, you can see all the pattern have a same effect, but I want randomly animate these lines. So for that, here I again use the attribute node. So for search attribute, and put it here, and this is also the instance, and put the same letter T, and here I also search for the merge node, so we can animate this and put the vector into this and this into the phase offset. Now by changing this value, we can randomly animate these lines. Here you can see back to the 0. Now I want to add animation to this pattern. So for that, here I create a timeline, move it here, and here I choose end frame 120 for this animation. And here, to make these animation fully looping, we always start from the frame 0. So we start from the frame 0 and hover this value and hit I to insert the keyframe, and jump to the last value, and here I add any even number with the pi to do this animation looping. So here I do asterisk pi and hit enter, and also hit I to insert the keyframe. Now our line having a looping animation, and you can see nice. Now I want to animate these color strips. So for that, here I enter into the color slot, and here I back to the frame 0 and change this value to animate these color strips. So hit I to insert the keyframe and jump to the last frame, and here I again put 2 asterisks pi, hit enter and hit I to insert the keyframe. Now our animation is fully looping, and here you can see. Nice. Now enter into the layout, and here I do some composition, add camera. So for that, here I search for the camera to add the camera, and Control Alt 0 to add the camera. And here I lock this camera to fit this structure, something like that, and unlock this. Nice. Now we have in camera view. Back to the frame 0, and I also enter into the rendered preview. So you can see these panels, and here I also add a background, some plane, and scale this to fully cover these strips, something like that. By pressing the F12 to render this frame, you can see our pattern is looking so beautiful. So in this way, by using the geometry nodes and also with the shader nodes, we can create this beautiful animation, motion graphic effects in Blender. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe this video.